Paula Larkin and I'm the project archivist for Spirit of Revolt. So today we've got the first of our show and tell. We hope to make this a kind of regular event every quarter and supported by the Mitchell Library. I'm not sure if you know much about the Spirit of Revolt archive, but it was set up in 2011 by a small group of people to collect and preserve and give access to the archives of people from Glasgow, groups from Glasgow that were involved in campaigns, activism, work class history, and to make that available to the general public through the Mitchell Library Research Room. So I don't know, Keith, would you want to say anything more? I'm going to just go through.
No, not at this stage, maybe jump in when the thoughts are more sorted out.
Right, so since that happened, what the group meet and they've got an acquisitions policy which says what kind of material that they're going to collect, and that was put together in conjunction with Glasgow City Archives. And the main idea is for things to be digitised so that people can have access to it wherever they are. So they have the website and volunteers come in and scan the material, and then it's uploaded onto the website, and eventually all the material will go up to Glasgow City Archives, and if you want to come and actually see the hard copy, which we've got out on the tables today, you can access it there. The first collection that was donated was the Alan Burnett collection, and that's all digitised and you can access that here. And there's now 36 collections. Online there's 33 and I've been working on another 3. So the collection's always growing. And some of the stuff that we're bringing in at the moment is from Faslane, and a lot are from individuals who've donated the material. So today we're starting with John Cooper collection. This is John Cooper here, and he's chosen 4 specific parts of his collection. The first is the Castlemilk Claimants Union. The second is material from the anti-poll tax campaign. The third is material from the miners' strike, and the fourth is material from a campaign to save Netherton Primary School. We've also got some material from John's collection on housing over here, and there's material here which is newspaper clippings from the poll tax. So the idea is that people come in and have a look around, and Joan can answer any questions, or we can start just a bit of a dialogue. Maybe start with the Claimants Union stuff.
How would people like to do it? Do you want to? I think everybody's had a look at the
Well, I
people
was
can
interested
quiz
in
me.
what you were saying, like that I'm always attracted to newsletters and newspapers. So these claimant newspapers, but you were saying that this was from England, this stuff?
As far as I can remember now, other people are here that know about this as well, because over a period of time your memory goes a bit, and also the fact that other people here means I can't embellish it as much as I would like, So Keith might be able to tell us. I'm assuming they were English papers, is that right, Keith?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to hear a wee background of how you came to be involved in the Castlemilk one, and how I could recall some of the mushrooming of Claimants Unions Scotland, and then how we came to be in contact with the National Federation of Claimants Unions, and we adopted the Claimants Charter, which obviously was a more radical, very brief statement on where we were. And then we made a famous trip to England to a conference, which we'll save that one for last because that has got a sort of dark side of it.
Aye. I'm glad Keith's here because I'm going to give you the fun stuff and the light-hearted stuff. And but it was serious as well, obviously. But I can only give you from my perspective. And the fact that Keith lived in a different bit of Glasgow and it was a different setup there, he'll be able to tell you a bit about that and correct some of my misunderstandings or whatever. Carol and I have lived in Castlemilk most of our life. We don't live there now, but that's where we lived most of our life. For anybody who doesn't know, Castlemilk's a housing scheme in the south side of Glasgow. At one point it was reckoned to be the largest housing scheme in Europe, 40,000 people. And one of the things that we were involved in there, it hardly any amenities initially. So a lot of young families at that time, Carol and I were in our 20s and with John at the time, and as I say, there wasn't an awful lot of amenities. So an awful lot of the young families there got together and tried to organise things like playgroups and deal with housing issues and so on. So it was quite good in a way that happened, you know, that there was that whole groundswell of young people, and we became active not through choice but through necessity in a way, you know, to get the things that we needed. And one of these things, when some of us fell in hard times, were unemployed and so on, one of the things that we looked into, I don't quite know how we found out about it in Castlemilk, was the idea of a claimants union. Now, I think we knew they already existed. My belief is that it's started in England, the claimants union movement. And we heard about it up in Castlemilk, and we thought that would be a really good idea. The whole thing about the claimants union, of course, is just like people that are in work are represented by a union. The unemployed, the disabled, the sick, when they in work are able to work, they didn't have any that type of protection or anybody to fight their corner for them. So that was the whole point here. And interestingly enough at the time, the attitude of the trade unions was they didn't want non-working members. Now trade unions are open to, they've got community membership and stuff like that. I'm a member of the Unite Community Union in Glasgow. At that time there wasn't any kind of protection if you were unemployed, sick or disabled. And you largely felt you were on your own. You had to deal with things. So 3 or 4 years up in Castlemilk had got together. We were already involved in other things that were going on, and we thought that would be a good idea, the claimants union idea. So, and this is where my memory gets a bit hazy. I'm not really good at the kind of facts and so on. But if I could maybe just say that for that wee group in Castlemilk, now there may have been other people, I don't know how early Keith was involved in his neck of the woods, and I know that some people in Govan Hill say that they were already on the go. It was my belief that we were the first in Castlemilk. That might be wrong.
No,
it's not even important. Sorry?
Albert Ionella from Dunchapel.
That's right.
Actually,
and then Bert came out and helped.
He was a trailblazer essentially, but he hadn't really helped create network organisations where they were kind of person orientated, I think. So I think, you know, he was technically around first, but somehow he just caught the moment and we all sort of started doing things around at the same time.
Could you tell us what year this was?
Sorry?
What years are we talking about?
76, 77, 78, remember that?
See, I couldn't even answer that exactly, you know. It might be down there in black and white somewhere, you know. But he's quite right. Albert Ianello, who was a lovely guy, very funny guy, he helped us out in Castlemilk with various leaflets he had composed and so on. And he told us just basically rip them off, just put Castlemilk on them or whatever. And that's how we started out. And I remember we used to get people coming from other areas and looking for a bit of help. We said, we'll do our best we can to help you, but ideally you should get half a dozen people for your area and invite us down, and we'll give you some kind of talk about how to organise in this respect. And that's what happened. And ultimately I think there was something like 13 claimants unions in and around Glasgow. The whole point of the claimants union, well, to be in the claimants union, you had to be a claimant, right? That isn't to say that other people weren't welcome at the meetings. They were, at least how we operated, was if the meetings ever had to go to a vote, which was not necessarily the best way to achieve a consent. We preferred consensus if everybody could agree, but it meant that people that weren't claimants couldn't significantly influence things, you know. We were always happy to hear other people and so on, but that was essentially it. So ultimately it developed into a wee bit of a movement, certainly in and around Glasgow. And Keith will be able to tell you more about the relationship we had with the English people. We did have a couple of conferences. I think they come up to Glasgow on one occasion, people from England, and we certainly went down there to a conference in London. But as Keith said, we'll leave that to the last.
So the unemployed workers centres, what was their relationship to the claimants union?
Well, they, as far as I can remember, they came afterwards.
Right.
And some of us that had been in the claimants union were involved, for example, in the unemployed workers centre in Castlemilk.
Right.
Until one day we went to a meeting in the city centre with the TUC or whoever, and we found out that there was two unemployed workers groups in Castlemilk, and it was a guy who had been in our group, had private talks with the Stalinists and the TUC or whatever, and they decided that they wanted rid of us. So they adopted his group at that meeting. His group was him. And they actually ultimately had to get the cops to remove us from whatever it was, some TUC building that we were in. And we went up. At this point, this is after the claimants union quite a bit, and it was basically a big hut, right, that they put up in Castlemilk. And we went up and broke the door and changed the lock and everything, you know. And but that only gave them a bit of bother. And then they elected a manager for the centre, who was also a local councillor, or who became a councillor, a real good yes man for the Labour Party. And we said, what are we thinking here? We're fighting over a garden shed, you know. Let's just leave it. And we did. And they just turned it into a pool hall. And the manager got a write-up in the papers as being incompetent and never in the place. Being asleep in bed when the reporter came in the door in the afternoon and stuff like that. And that was the end of it. The Labour Party had to remove him from the Unemployed Workers Centre. Interestingly, at the same time as, or just after the claimants union had started, you got other bodies coming in like the Citizens Advice Bureau. And that's ultimately when we had to close down, because we had struggled to get a bit of funding. And then when 3 years later, 4 years later, when the Citizens Advice came along, they withdrew our funding. by this time we were becoming a real headache anyway, and that was a good excuse to withdraw the funding because they would be duplicating a service. That was how it was put. And but that was only one of the things that the whole group of people in Castlemilk were involved in at the time, you know. So it's my experience, an awful lot of things that we are involved in, we've got to be involved in, or be kind of ad hoc things, you know. They don't need to necessarily just be a one thing that's going to last for 30 years. So that was that basically.
Yeah,
Could
my
I
experience.
ask, sorry, did you say the first Claimants Union started in Drumchapel?
Well, to my knowledge in Glasgow, that would have been maybe in the mid-70s or before.
Yeah, would you say because Drumchapel had a lot of people decanted in from the old tenements and Castlemilk was the same?
That's right.
Was that a kind of new kind of people coming into environments and wanting a clean start, sick of the old system and having a bit of fire about them? Would you say there were other places that decanted into that had the same kind of ideas, the young people getting together? Or was it just a coincidence that Drumchapel and Castlemilk started these things because they were decanted into from the old tenements, from the old style of...
I don't know what happened in Drumchapel, but I would sort of say that Albert Ionella, who was the main sort of character, he had connections politically going right back to Guy Aldred and the remnants of the Word and the United Socialist movement and stuff. So, you know, he wasn't just a claimants activist. You know, there was a whole political theory behind what he was doing, you know, and that was informed us as well. We came from a slightly different approach. Certainly by the late 70s, we were embracing theories from Italy about take over the city and stuff, and you were involved in fair fairs, and so the claimants activity wasn't an isolated activity, single issue activity. It was part of a more general critique of society.
Was he active?
Obviously, I was coming to the West End, so the West End was completely different. It was people who were only unemployed temporarily, bedsitter land, you know, rented accommodation, or I'd been actually previously a squatter as well. So, totally different situation from a more settled community like there was in Castlemilk.
But he was active before Drumchapel as well.
Yeah, he would have been involved right from the mid to late 50s. He in the sort of generation of people like Farquhar MacLay and Ben Mullen, and I understand that that's the kind of people that were around who would have known Guy Aldred in his later years, and Ethel MacDonald, the essay too, before she departed.
But I think you're right. What Keith was describing when I first came into anarchism, Keith and a number of other people were already involved, and there was a kind of, well, it just exactly what Keith described, maybe even squatting a bit, and students or whatever. And our situation was a bit different in that we were raising a family, we were in a housing scheme. Most of the people we knew were in that situation, you know. And as I say, the things that we were involved in came about really by necessity. But still, I suppose the same roots were there, you know. I'd found out about anarchism, I'd made up my mind I was an anarchist, and I was beginning to become aware of people like Guy Aldred and various other people. But, you know, I think the development is parallel, but no, you know, in different ways. But it just occurred to me, I've not really told you what we did in the Claimants Union. The whole point of it was that we decided very early on it would be very much direct action. And in the days, and I'm really angry that the situation that exists at the moment with job centres, I don't understand why nobody is challenging that whole thing. And when I say nobody, I don't mean an individual. I mean a group of people that are getting together and organising and try to challenge the situation there. For example, when you go to a job centre, you don't get in the door unless you've got an appointment to see somebody specifically, and they've got security guards. Now, in the days of the Claimants Union, we didn't have so much stake in the problems. There was security guards, but they tended to be old guys that were retired or whatever, just moving from bit to bit in the office spaces. So we used to get down bundles of leaflets, and we used to hand them out to everybody that was sitting in the office. The security guard would come on, well, what's going on here? You can't do that, And by and large, we just ignored them, just gave out the leaflets. And the leaflets were saying to people, don't face them without representation. You can call in any of us here at the moment to accompany you to your interview. You've got the right for that. And believe it or not, people are still having to argue that at various offices, job centres, which is a right, it's there, and it's actually in black and white, and people are still having to argue this on a regular basis at job centres. Some of our comrades in Edinburgh are very, very active in that whole thing, and they face this quite a lot. So in the days it was quite new though. So we gave everybody leaflets. We told them you don't need to go up there. We also became aware that you've got to have the right vocabulary, and you could go up, for example, and say to somebody at the desk, I don't have any money, I'm skint, I need help or whatever, and that didn't wash with them. But if you went up and said, I'm destitute, believe it or not, they had a Bible that they used. It was a code of practice. And if you used that particular word, they couldn't ignore you. They had to deal with you. They had to do something about it.
They might have sent you to Minerva Street, mind you.
Sorry?
They might have sent you to Minerva Street.
Aye, right.
Which is just down at Finiston. Was. But anyway. That
thing was called the A codes, if I remember right. And it was a kind of one of these loose leaf volume things that get updates every so often. And one of the characters that was involved in our group was a Trotskyist boy, and he said, what we need to do is build an alliance with the unions and so on. And we said, we're fighting the unions most of the time in the office. But he was so insistent, we said, well, superficially it does make some kind of sense, so why don't we do that? So obviously by this time we had read and we understood how the DHSS, as it was in the days, operated. And they had people we called snoopers. I can't even remember their proper title now. But they used to go around people's houses unexpectedly. And it was really to see if people were cohabitating. That was one of their big things. And they would take the most, commit the most flagrant abuses. They would just, when the person opened the door, they would just enter the house. No waiting to be invited or whatever. People didn't know their rights. And they would get into people's bedrooms and toilets and look for signs that there might have been, it was generally women that they did this way, and look for signs that there might be a man, a razor or something like that. And he asked people embarrassing questions, So that was one of our prime targets, our prime hates in the Claimants Union. So when we got the people up for the union, and they were all very cagey, of course, we're not here representing the DHSS, blah, 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 And in the days it was the fashion, dungarees and stuff like that were very much in, and big badges. People like big badges. And a lot of these people had anti-Nazi badges on, right, the union people. And their first question to them is, why are you all wearing anti-Nazi badges when you are behaving like fascists? So that was a nice opener, you know. And but eventually we had a chat with him, and we said that this is really unacceptable, and it still happens today. Some of the people that are dishing out some of the worst things in job centres are trade union members. And I've been on about this for the last 4 or 5 years in Unite, and then for anywhere else I can make the point. And that's not on. I mean, that should be just absolutely scandalous. The whole issue of sanctioning, for example, could have been stopped in its tracks. The union should never have agreed to implement that. And I know all the arguments, the ins and outs, I've heard it all. I've argued with the people, the trade union hierarchy about it all. But anyhow, we told them after we had reached some kind of understanding that one of the things that we needed was the A codes, or a copy of the A codes. And here, lo and behold, one time when we appeared at the wee place that we operated from, there was a carrier bag with a couple of folders, and it was copies of the A codes, which were really good for us because it meant when we went in to represent somebody, we could just look up all the stuff that was needed, use the right terminology that they couldn't wriggle out of. Another thing that we did was that we had went to the social work department and we'd asked them for a room there. Also, we asked them for a grant because at that point, social work departments could give out grants. Section 12, I think they were called, I'm not sure. And we got some ridiculously small amount of money, you know, £100 or £150 or something. And we also said we could do with the use of a room. So they gave us a room and we said, and telephone, you know. So they put in a phone in the room. And one of the things we used to do on a daily basis was that we would phone the head office, the DHSS in Edinburgh, because one of the things there was if you didn't receive satisfaction at a local office, you could phone the head office and they had to take it up. It's like going to the cops and making an issue of something. They can't just ignore it, they've got to take a note of it. So we did this on a daily basis, and we got people had been turned away from their local office, refused money, refused help. The old story about the gyro no arriving in the post and things like that. And Edinburgh must have had to contact that office, straighten it out with them, and then the person was able to get back and get their money. And then eventually, we also had a liaison guy in the social work department who kept us up to date with what they were thinking and stuff and what they were happy with or whatever. And one day he came to us and said the chief guy in the social work department wasn't very happy because Edinburgh had phoned him, the DHS in Edinburgh had phoned him and complained about the amount of hassle we were causing them by phoning every day, you know. And we had a 2-minute discussion about it. He'd asked us not to do it, you know, through his boss, had asked us not to do it. So we had a couple of minutes discussion about it, and we says to Bob, the liaison guy, well, ask your boss if he'd prefer him getting the hassle or Edinburgh, because that's what's going to happen if you don't just behave yourself, you know. And he went away and he came back and he says, carry on. So, but the Claimants Union, in my opinion, was very, very successful. I mean, it's got to be, isn't it, if people organise and really pursue the thing in that way. So we get people thousands of pounds in grants and stuff like that, which they were entitled to. Let's not forget that. One of the big points that we made all the time was that every year when they done the calculations, there was £700 million of unclaimed benefit. No, it wasn't unclaimed benefit, it was benefit they managed to not to give to people, you know. So that's the sort of thing we did at that point in the Claimants Union. So, anybody want to ask any questions about organisation or?
I've got another one because I work for the Citizens Advice Bureau, and I was very interested when you said that you'd started, you were a precursor really to that kind of environment, except you were more political. When the Citizens Advice Bureau came along, yeah, we're funded by the government as well, partially. Therefore, more recently, there was this legislation about charities. If charities received money from the government, they were not allowed to actively go out and work against the government. But you seem to be like a Trotskyist kind of influence and anarchist influence. CAB became very strong, but would you say you were somehow ousted by the CAB and their connections with the government because of your political beliefs, not necessarily what you were actually doing for the people? Would you say that was a fair comment or not?
I would say it was both of the things, you know. It was, they used the Citizens Advice Bureau when it arrived not to give us funding, and that meant the thing died, obviously. And they wanted us out the way, and obviously they didn't like the political angle. But that's the whole thing about when you go to a Citizens Advice Bureau, you expect a certain thing, you know. And when you go to any other kind of authority-based type thing, you know, if I go to see a lawyer, for example, I know to what extent he's prepared to help or whatever. But we didn't have any of these restrictions. I mean, bear in mind, it wasn't just a battle with the social security. It's a battle against the system, the whole system that we don't like, the capitalist system. So that was only one aspect to that.
So the CAB kind of ousted you.
Sorry?
The CAB kind of ousted you, it weakened you, the Citizens Advice. It took away a certain energy and a certain...
Well, there was a tension anyway within the claimants unions as they developed. You know, some claimants union had a political consciousness. They were wanting to uphold the claimants charter, wanting to link up with claimants unions around England, etc. Others were just really into being do-gooders and wanting to help people's rights and whatever, and that obviously fed directly into there was a greater amount of mass unemployment post '79 with Thatcher, etc. Into the early '80s. There was a mushrooming of the poverty industry, as I call it. You know, all sorts of organisations were created, and people who had to get jobs, such as myself, ended up in that environment. I didn't work for CAB, but worked for an independent organisation in North Pollock. And you're overwhelmed by demand because a lot of people who had previously been in employment there was a big shakeout of industries, and suddenly there was a different scenario from the mid to late '70s when it was a Labour government. There wasn't as much unemployment. There was a different situation going on. It was a slightly more neoliberal agenda from then onwards. So. The claimants union did kind of wither away a bit. There was a replacement, I suppose, for a while in the unemployed workers organisations, but and then John will go on to talk about some other activities that people's. As I say, there was a tension within the Claimants Union Federation in Glasgow. There was some unions I seem to recall, like Rutherglen and whatever, that were just, didn't really seem to have any political perspective at all, and others were much more political. So that would be, a dynamic we had to cope with.
Did you have kind of fundraisers and things like that as well to bring in funds? Or?
I can't quite remember, that.
To some extent, although we did all, get the £100 from each respective social work organisation, had to set up a bank account and all the rest of it, But in the
Did
West
they all
End,
have?
where I
Did
was,
they all have offices then? All these different claimants unions in Glasgow. I didn't realise it was
wasn't
like you were saying.
the likes
13
of some of the other ones like the West End was a lot more nebulous. So there wasn't. There's no, the link to the social work department is very, very, very weak. You know, we got a grant from them, but basically we set up a surgery in a wee shop in Bank Street for some reason we had a link to, and we had a phone, and that phone was just used. We only really met weekly. We didn't have the kind of intensity I was John's describing in Castlemilk, you know, maybe due to supply and demand and other people doing other things, but we were on the phone to Lady Lawson Street though, in Edinburgh. You know, that was one of the tactics. The brew, you would go to the brew and leaflet as well as the Social Security office, you know, and you would highlight things people could, you know, claim. So you were, you know, likes of exceptional needs payments, additional requirements, and things that were add-on things you could get at that time within your supplementary benefits, it was called. You know.
If people had moved into a new house, you know, they didn't have a thing. Now you've got no chance of getting anything, or people are actually getting loans. I mean, in the 1970s, we thought things were bad, but we never imagined that people would have to get a loan to furnish their house, not that. I also forgot to say that when people came to the meetings, we not leafleting, we advertised the claimant union everywhere we could. And when people came, usually people from Castlemilk, as I said, came to the meetings, they would come by usually a specific thing, not just necessarily a social security problem. Or we found out, we became aware that when people came to with one thing, they often did half a dozen things, you know. So we made a point of asking them that their electricity was disconnected, or they couldn't pay a gas bill, it was coming up, whatever. And a lot of people fiddled their electricity, you know. That was quite common. And we put out a cartoon type leaflet telling people that this had came to our attention. And it was really a terrible thing, this. And because people were getting caught for fiddling their electricity, because they were doing it in a really ham-fisted way. So the rest of the cartoon explained how to do it properly. and then we denounced it again at the end, you know. So, but one of the things that we did when people came to a weekly meeting or whatever, or came with a problem, we said to them, the whole point of the claimants union is that we're going to take your problem off you and take it away and solve it. We're going to help you to solve it. And that way you'll be able to help other people and deal with it again if it happens to you. And we encourage them to become involved in the organisation. And some did. We had at times like 30, 40 people, but that's the kind of peak, you know, at one time. And it had a lot of other knock-on things. I mean, for example, in the local housing department, where people went to pay their rent, there was a wee section of chairs in rows, and that was for people that were in arrears. And these people would all sit in these chairs waiting to be seen one at a time, and they wouldn't speak to each other. I mean, everybody knew if you were sitting in that section why you were there. So it's that whole social kind of isolation, and that's the sort of things that we were trying to break down. We were saying to people, listen, if you can't pay your rent, it's no surprising if you're either get a crap wage, a very low wage, or you're living in social security money. So don't feel as if it's your fault, because everything was designed obviously to make people feel small and insecure, you know, and it was their fault, you know. So that's one of the big things that we try to tackle in that. But the essential thing was helping people. Our experience is if you went to a social worker, for example, they would take your story and then say, hey, give me 5 minutes, they would disappear into another room, make phone calls and come back and tell you Well, I'm glad to say it's been resolved, you know. But we didn't operate like that. We tried to show people. And it worked, obviously, and it worked in the sense that people came back. We also told them, listen, don't think because this has been resolved, that's going to be the end of your problems. As long as we have the crap system that we have, you're always going to have problems like that or others, you know. So that's what the whole essence of the thing was.
I wonder if you can clarify a memory of mine. I was a teenage mum in the 80s, and I didn't know anything about benefits. I'd gone to university for a year, hated it, left, gone and done work with CND, and then pregnant, and then baby born, and lived in Spring Hall. But somebody, some welfare rights officer or whatever, appeared out of nowhere and basically got me loads of money for all the baby things, for the house. I needed it. It was bona fide, but I don't know where he came from. You know, I was a teenage mum. It was like foggy times, trying to look back. I think his name was Chris something.
Chris
that was his name.
He was a legend. He was a legend. He didn't get involved with what they were doing, explain. It was like he was Robin Hood, and that was his position.
Who was he?
He used to write community action. Community action news magazine is in the archive, and I think Chris used to contribute some stuff to that. He was a bit of a maverick individual.
Community action, whose collection is that in?
Well, it's been actually archived at the moment by Sarah, who's still doing scanning in the room as we talk.
Whose collection is it in? Sorry, it's not
in
in
Cooper's.
right.
Well, I think it's also in mine and some other collections. It's in a spread eagle to various places.
But I tell you what, he made a really significant difference to me in that phase of my life, completely. And it went from being, oh my God, you know, how am I going to cope with all this? How am I going to feeling like, and you know, a wee angel had arrived, and it made things manageable, and you know, my kitchen had like pots and pans in it and things like that, you know, and that his touch on people's lives. I mean, I think he was acting outside his remit when he worked for me. Was he a Castlemilk welfare rights officer?
No, it was Mary Hill, actually.
Mary Hill.
Well,
I
lived
lived
around various places.
I lived in Spring Hall, which was completely opposite end of the city. But I remember we went to Pitt Street or something. I don't know where it was, for an appeal somewhere. I don't know. But I mean, I wouldn't even have known that appeals existed. You know what I mean? I don't know how he became involved with. No recollection.
But, I think that's quite interesting what you're saying, because that's something I forget, you know, when you assume that young people are going to either know it or you tell them at once and that's it, they understand it. But obviously that isn't the case, you know.
Especially if you're in, you know, if you're a teenage mum and you've not got much support.
That's right.
All you're dealing with is nappies and feeding them.
That's right.
You know?
Aye.
That's it. Is he still in Glasgow?
No idea. I mean, I used to work in that field up to 2009, but so I would come across Chris occasionally, but I've no idea where he is or where I suspect he'd be retired. But you just have to Google his name. Check out, maybe he's on Facebook or something.
But he was part of that culture that you're talking about.
Aye.
You know, he was on your side. He was a good
one
guy.
of the other ones.
Very good. Yeah.
Well, needless to say, we came across some welfare rights officers, and a lot of them were very good, you know, quite kind of radical, and they probably went beyond their remit as well.
One was Hugh Henry, who went on to be a Scottish Government minister after he denounced being in militant. Anyway,
I think there's something quite interesting there, and Keith hit it right in the head, and it ties on a bit with my personal recollection. You just have to Google his name. I remember these events as they happened in the late 70s, growing up in the housing scheme. If you lived in a housing scheme, you were in bloody isolation. They were 5 miles from the city centre. You were poor. most of the people that you coexisted with in that housing scheme were poor. You went anywhere, you walked, you got out and about the same way people had done 500 years previously. I remember us walking practically everywhere. And I remember me and you walking to the brew one day, and I remember you got us a smoked sausage supper, and you said, listen son, it won't always be this good. But more importantly, we've got to remember, and it's easy forgot by the people that were old enough to be there, and it's not known at all by the people that were too young. This is a time before mobile phones. Yeah. This is a time before the internet. You really were in isolation. Working class people, by and large, didn't have cars. So even communicating or connecting with somebody in Springburn was bloody difficult. A lot of the people you knew didn't even have a landline. And if they did have a landline and they were working class, half the time it was disconnected. So you really was connection with other people, particularly radical left people, or even just mildly socialist people, was really quite difficult. I spent a significant part of my childhood being sent as a runner to tell people at the various meetings, going to go and tell Mrs. Such and Such that we're meeting at 7:30 tomorrow night. And one of my abiding memories of my childhood in the Claimants Union was finishing, in the good old days, you finished school at 5 to 4 every day. And I remember walking the 20-minute walk home, knackered, glad to be home, chat my own front door, my man down the inn. Oh no, they're at the social work department, they're at the Claimants Union, traipse all the way back up the road to the Claimants Union, and sure enough, my mum and dad were there because they were still dealing with somebody's case. By which time, of course, the social work department had also closed, but they'd kept the people at the social work department in the late. And where does it all tie into the anarchism and stuff? One of the things I remember very, very, very clearly, a tiny, tiny room, if you had 10 people in it, you were like that. I remember getting in that room and the social work department closing the door, and on the back of the door, my father had cut out various bits of coloured paper and sat with felt markers, writing out various anarchist quotes and sticking them up. And I remember being 12 years old and going, all property is theft, put on. So there was definitely an anarchist philosophy running through it, at least your involvement in the whole thing. But I think that's really important to stress. It's always been hard for working class people. Working class people have always suffered. But ironically, we are actually more technology rich now. We've got communication, which we didn't have at that time.
I think it always got me a bit Castlemilk. Well, generally in these times, was the kind of imagination. I mean, we get a website with radical imagination. But there was no phones, there was no technology. The imagination just now seems to be dead sophisticated. But it doesn't translate to govern, it doesn't translate to outside the brew when you're leafleting and stuff like that. And you know, that lack of technology to me had something to do with that. You know, if you're poor, you had to be imaginative. You know, the ideas with the caravans outside the housing office and stuff like that. You know, that was entertainment as well, but it was obviously important entertainment in lots of ways. I don't think there's enough of that goes on just now. You know, where you can invent ideas just to get yourself into a situation without slowing down your leaflets and everybody's dodging at your road and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
There's
It'd be nice to get some of that imagination back into the street.
You know, lots of folk are going vegan these days. Well, there's a wee kind of vegan anarchist thing that they make food and they take it and they put it on a table on Sucky Hall Street and give it to people. And so I think it's just called Big Vegan Cookout, and it was like a group of young folk that just want to spread the word. So I'm sure they've not got a food licence or anything like that. They're just making their own food and taking it, and each one had their own wee tray, because I went in to check it out yesterday, and it was so inspiring, because they were out on the street and they were just giving folk food, you know, and folk were enjoying the food, and so that's kind of along those lines.
It's not difficult for individuals just to do something that people notice. And people forget this.
Wee bit of direct action, you know.
Well, another thing that was quite common was agitprop. You know, you'd get a group of 4 or 5 people just on the street corner, just telling very simple stories. and people would come and watch. But I mean, I haven't seen that for years and years and years. But I don't know why we're not doing it now. Yeah,
one of the things I want to bring up was, it wasn't just by accident that the 40,000 of you were out in Castlemilk. It was a deliberate plan. Many people had been previously in Gorbals, which actually had a community and which was a center of radicalism, and they quite deliberately shifted all those destroyed Gorbals and shifted them out to the hinterlands. So it was, and I think, that's to keep in mind. This isn't by accident that working class people wound up in these schemes on the outer limits. One point I want to raise about the claimants union, well, a couple points. One is the funding part. I get nervous when radical groups depend on government money, and to say, well, they withdrew it and it then withered, then makes me even more. That shouldn't have happened. It's something to think about in terms of future organizations. To depend on the government for your funding, that's asking for trouble. I mean, to then complain that they withdrew it, I mean, come on now, really? What did you expect? They were gonna, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So that's one thing. And I understand that's not that's a repeating phenomenon within Glasgow. The Labour Party in particular was very good at bringing groups on their payroll and either co-opting them or setting them loose at some point. The other thing, though, is the kinds of demands you were placing on the system were really very minimal. I mean, in fact, they didn't meet it, but nonetheless, they were very minimal. And I think that for a radical movement to really thrive, you've got to think of demands that, it's one thing to talk about, we're for a future society like this, and we don't want people screwed down, but what kind of intermediate demands can you place on the system that really challenge them in a way that's saying, well, don't crash in people's doors and inspect whether they're sleeping with people. I mean, that's really very, very minimal. Granted, they're not eager to do it, but it's still very, very minimal. Well, in terms of income for poor people, minimum wage, that'd be one thing to talk about. A guaranteed income for everybody. There are various things you could do, demands you could propose that actually challenge the system in a way that, frankly, your demands weren't. I mean, they really weren't. I mean, that's why they were answering your phone. They may have been annoyed, but they actually answered the phone, right? Well, call up somebody and say, we want to have a 20-pound minimum wage. They won't answer that phone. That's not on the. They'll just tell you that's crazy. That system won't work that way, and it won't. It won't work that way. That's why we're raising it. We're raising demands that challenge the system. So that's another point I wanted to raise about the claimants union, because it seemed to be a lack of trying to think of how do we go. Granted, you had a base. How do you go with that base to actually develop a program that really challenges the system and leads the way towards a more radical transformation?
I think that's a fair enough point, Eric. The only thing I can say is that at the time, an awful lot of the things that we were involved in Castlemilk and everybody was involved in, we were reacting to the situation a lot, and that's certainly true. But that was vital to us, I mean, our income depended on that, maybe even our next meal, on that kind of reaction. I mean, I couldn't tell you how poor we were at the time, and I'm not trying to play the heartstrings or pluck the heartstrings, but and along with a whole lot of other people. So an awful lot, it was immediate reaction, but it was reaction that got results and helped at the time. But there wasn't that mid-term or longer-term planning. You're quite right about that. And also, I think maybe we weren't expecting to be funded forever, or because we'd all other irons in the fire as well. We were involved in half a dozen things at the one time up there, and paradoxically, some of the guys that were involved in the claimants union became welfare rights workers, or when the CAA opened up, they they joined the CAA, you know. But, so there was that kind of thing. But no, you're quite right. We certainly couldn't have done that with the small amount of people we had in Castlemilk. We should maybe have been thinking about these things and talking about these things as a first step.
I think when we had the Glasgow coordination, or what was called the Clydeside coordination of climate change, these issues would come up, and it'd be this where the divergences would show. You know? Although it was actually really good to have these meetings. It was people like from the West End. We went to a meeting in Black Hill one day, and there was snow drifts everywhere. There was no buses on, but somehow we made it through, and we're just treated like complete heroes when we actually arrived in Black Hill. You know, especially as a bunch of idiotic West Enders. But, you know, so it broke down all sorts of barriers. You know, there was just, but I mean, in terms of debate, yeah, there was a lot of people just didn't have a perspective of a social transformation of society. There was always that battle going on. You're always going on about the Claimants Charter, smash the cohabitation rule being one part of it, you know.
Aye. I think the people that were coming to us, don't forget, most of them weren't at all politicised, you know. So in a way that was maybe the first steps of them being involved, you know. So I don't know how ambitious we could have been at that point. Can I finish up with a couple of funny wee anecdotes? Maybe move on to something else, unless anybody's got any questions.
Well, we've got, thinking about time as well,
Oh,
we've got a few other things to get through.
Aye.
So one thing, were you for the welfare state or were you fighting the welfare state? I think the welfare state now, and it's not necessarily the fault of a Conservative government, it's of a benefit culture, is in need of an enormous reform. But did you think that in the 70s as well, or were you working with the welfare state, trying to improve it?
Well, I've never thought in terms like that, right? As far as I'm concerned, ever since I was politically aware, I've seen the objective to be to get rid of capitalism and replace it with something much, much better. At the time, obviously, if we'd have put leaflets out like that, we wouldn't have get anywhere at the time.
But you were heavily involved with
we
the
were having
welfare
this
state.
dialogue and interaction, and I've claimed money before off the state, of course, you know. And my advice to anybody is take as much as you can get, right? And that's only talking about the welfare state. And I don't mean by that organised crime syndicates and stuff like that. I don't mean that. I'm talking about individually. And I've also advised young people that are complaining about the lack of career opportunities to consider a life of crime, right? Because the objective is to get rid of the capitalist system. That's the whole thing. It's not enough just pottering about with various things. You might need to, I mean, we are all involved in it. We're all caught up in the web of capitalism. So we're interacting with it every day, you know. But that should be always in our mind, you know. And that's what I tell other people as well. If people are only doing it for a certain short-term gain, well, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't help them, but that's not going to be enough. You know, we'll always be in problems if that's the situation. But to me, funny anecdote, there was one of the guys up in Castlemilk, Keith will remember him, a guy called Eddie Graham. And Eddie was like the most determined guy I've ever met. He's now dead, right? He was also a Stalinist, right? But don't let that completely put you off him, right? And he was so much a Stalinist that he said that Stalin only had one fault, and that was he was too soft, right? So that gives you an example of Eddie. But I learned an awful lot about, believe it or not, direct action for Eddie, right? I'll not explain why that seems a contradiction, but I'll not even get into all that. I know the answer, I think, now about that. But anyhow, one time we were in the Social Security office, and usually at 4 o'clock they shut the doors and everybody's to leave. Well, we were arguing a particular case with somebody, and it had got right through the ranks up to the manager in the whole place. And it was 5 o'clock by this time, and he's wanting us to leave. And Eddie was pressing the point all the time. And at one point he turned round and he says to us, the manager said, "Mr. Graham, you're being completely unreasonable." And Eddie turned and looked at me and says, "I think we're getting somewhere." And that's the sort of determination that Eddie and we developed, you know. The other, it's okay to give the other quick story. There was somebody people of England come up to Glasgow once for a conference. But at one point, the claimants unions went down to England, down to London, for this conference that was proposed. And we approached the social work guys, the head guy in social work, who really just didn't want us in his office, you know. And we were saying about this, we wanted money over and above the grant money we got to go to attend this conference. And this well-scrubbed, suited guy, he's like this, "How many people will be at this conference? How many people from Glasgow are going?" And we said, "Well, we all want to go." And he said, "Oh, that's impossible." When we attend conferences, it's usually 1 or 2 people from each area or whatever. And we said, "Well, there's 13 claimants unions in Glasgow now, you know." And he scribbles away and he says, "Well, allowing 2 delegates from each claimants union, you know," he said, "we could finance like 26 people staying overnight at a hotel and stuff like this." And we said, "How much does it come to?" And he told us the final amount. And we said, "Well, just give us the money and we'll sort it out." Right? So he says, "Oh, no, I couldn't do that. You need to book the boarding houses or hotels or whatever." We said, "No, give us the money." And it was practically robbery, you know. And we didn't leave his office until he'd actually signed the cheque, you know, or authorised somebody to sign the cheque. And we went away and got the cheque cashed. And then we delegated one of the guys from Rutherglen to organise transport to get us to London and back. And we worked out there was somewhat 40 odd people going, you know, and a ridiculous amount, you know. And we all arrived it was night time when the bus left Rutherglen, and there was this bus right there, and it looked like something in the 1930s or something. Like Czechoslovakia. And we all climbed on the bus, and then the guy had organised the bus. We said to him, "You got this? You know, with the money we gave you?" They said, no, we've got money left over." And he came round and gave everybody a wad of money, like £10, £20 to everybody. Now, on the bus there was people...
I would have preferred to tell them sorted out.
It turned out that our premises were going to be some place that was it was delinquent guys, wasn't it? It was some kind of... I think it was going to be a place for delinquent boys, as they put it in the 80s. And they made bunk beds, and there was only a limited supply of mattresses. And we had arrived at the place. No, we did before that. On the way down, we got this money, and people arrived, and it was obvious a lot of the people were drunk, and some of them had bought, as they say in Glasgow, a cargo with them. And when they get this windfall as well, oh, that was brilliant, you know.
So the weather was also a factor, because actually for some reason it was wet in Scotland, but and we went to England, it was freezing, it was much so the temperature was plunging as we were heading towards England.
Right. The back of your window, the bus stop,
no, that was on the way back.
Oh, was that the way back? Right.
But on the way down there, one of the guys, I don't know if it was for Rutherglen, but he was an old trade union guy, and he arrived in a wheelchair, and his wheelchair, he got on the bus, remember that? And it got thrown in the luggage compartment or whatever. And we weren't 10 minutes away when all these trunks It was a football bus, and all these drunks started singing, "Stop the bus, we need a wee wee," and all this, you know. And the driver went, "We've only started, we're only 10 minutes into the journey. We'll never get there," so it case. But anyway, that's what happened. And the way back, because of the back window being smashed, there was ice on the inside of the bus.
Scottish bus coming.
I think you were in the sleeping bag, but you know, some people were in sleeping bags in the bus.
So it's like one of these Fellini films or something. I'm sure you could do something with it.
It's one of the great plays that's waiting to be written.
So, are most people aware of Spirit of Revolt and of the website? So, here you can access what's been scanned so far, and if you're looking at material, there's a search engine, so you can search anything that's written in the description will come up in the search. And if there's the material that hasn't been scanned that you want to look at, then you can just email, the contacts are there. You can email John Cousins and arrange to come in and see the material, and I take the material to the Glasgow City Archives, which is the room next door, and you can come in and actually look at it. So there's been various exhibitions as well. We had 100 Years of Protest Literature exhibition that was in the Mitchell Library, which was really good, and this anti-war movements, which was that 2 years ago or a year ago?
Well, that's 2015.
And that's a text that Maria, who's here, has written about the First World War descent in Scotland. So there's various things that you can access through the website, and you can request to come up and look at material. And you can also donate material if you've got material that fits in with the acquisitions policy, which is about collecting and preserving working class socialist past and present. Keith, do you want to talk about how it was kind of set up?
I think when it was set up, there was a kind of realisation that a number of people who had been crucial around the kind of libertarian socialist anarchist scene for years had passed on, and basically there was no real record of anything they'd been involved in. You know, one significant person that would be touched on John's life, etc., was David Carruthers. You know, and you know these people. So there was a sense that we really need to catch up here in this, and it's overdue, but let's do it now, you know? Because we have, you know, fortunately some of the stuff from the past was in the Bailey's collection, you know, which was initially in Glasgow University, then came to be incorporated here in the archives section in the Mitchell. But and there was other stuff that had been donated to the Mitchell that was lying in a box in the basement, basically, which we had christened the Bratak Do collection. But you know, that had to be rediscovered 28 years later, and then it fortunately was incorporated in our thing. But so when we got started, we had a succession of meetings, and we got some funding. We employed an archivist, Chris Cassells, and he started the cataloguing system, and you know, that, and since then there's been a number of different archivists, and they've extended that, and a lot more people have actually added on collection. You can see Bratak Do there as number 5, but actually in terms of when that came into being in the Mitchell, would have been number 1 if it had been passed on to us initially, you know. So, and all the blue things there, things you click on obviously there, which have been digitised. The John Cooper collection is the one that's been digitised the most. We've got an intention of you know, basically having that completely digitised, and that's very, very much soon, you know. Some other ones have got digitisation at various so most people will access the collections through that rather than being a researcher and wanting to see physical copies. We don't digitise everything. In some places, it's been digitised by other projects like LibCom and the centre in Nottingham, which is just
Sparrow's Nest.
For example. So we work in conjunction with these people. And in fact, when Sparrow's Nest had a presentation at the Anarchist Book Fair about 4 years ago, we actually happened to be down there and took an active part in that presentation. So although there's not a formal network of archiving organisations around, there is a kind of informal help system. So a lot of different people have come and gone, and will donate their volunteer labour for a while as scanners, as they're known. And that continues to this day.
Say we meet once a month, usually on the lecture.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's not the sum total of what we do. Obviously, we want to have an impact around in terms of displays and things like that. So, and also the Spirit Revolt is active in other projects like keeping May Day alive and things like that. I've worked in conjunction with the Industrial Workers of the World and other organisations such as the Scottish Peace Network. So we do have a collaborative approach.
So your search engines, do you have a subject search engine that can go through any collection and pick out, say, poll tax or
if you type in a name or something, it should come up.
Yeah, so anything that's written, the way it's catalogued is it has a reference number and then it has a title or a description. And this is the title and the description here. So anything that's there can be searched. So give us a search that you want to do.
What about the keeping a primary school open somewhere?
So then it would come up which collection that it was in. So in the Charlie Baird collection, there's a lot of stuff about education.
That was when we were involved in the free school at Barrowfield, so it's quite significant.
There's stuff in Keith Miller's, there's stuff in John Cooper's, there's stuff in Alex. So that then you would just go into those collections and then further search.
I'm
wondering a couple of things. Maybe we could have a mailing list for those people who remain in contact with SOR. And the other thing is,
We're not government funded.
no, we're not government funded, and really a lot depends on the direct debit. So if anybody is interested in having a direct debit order that goes to SOR, it'd be good if you could talk to Paula, and then we can send you by email the little form that you have to fill out.
You can
give to your bank. One
One
final thing is I'm trying to coordinate the fast lane stuff, so if anybody here was at any time involved with the Peace Camp, I'd like to hear from you, because we're trying to collect almost anything connected with the Peace Camp, newsletters, minutes of meetings, correspondence, mementos, short stories that were written about it, you name it. So we're trying to put together a broad archive of the Peace Camp, and then once we have it done, obviously we'll make exhibits using the material. So if you were involved, or if you know anybody who was involved in the Peace Camp, it's been going on for 30 years, so contact us.
I'll just pass this round if people want to put their name in, if they want to join the email.
Paula, can I ask, what's the situation with the Ethel MacDonald collection? Is that anybody linked in its Spirit Revolt collection?
No.
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 It's in the Bailey's collection, which John Taylor Caldwell had assembled from, he was the remnant of that group, and apart from writing books, he passed on all the material including like Spanish Civil War flags and everything, to the Bailey's collection. And it was itemised. We got a copy of that.
Right.
We're not supposed to have a copy, but we nevertheless have a copy, and we got to look at it. And I think Eric did a bit of research into it as well. Is that right?
Well, we're thinking about it, and
well, anyway,
it's one of my topics of interest.
You must have looked at it a wee bit.
I have seen it. I've actually had access to the box many years ago.
Right, I mean, there is, see these display boxes that are out in the foyer just now. There's 2 pages of a Guy Aldred scrapbook on exhibition, and another Red Clydesider who became a lord or a sir.
Is it an ILP or something?
Yeah.
Man Shinwell or something?
No, is it Ferguson? But I think there's discussion between Spirit of Revolt, Stacia and John Cousins with because within Glasgow libraries you have the city archives and you have special collections. So special collections is part of the library, and that's where the material about Guy Aldred and Ethel MacDonald from the Baileys, that's where all the Bailey stuff went. So it would make sense, because there is we're going to be working in various collections within Spirit of Revolt. There's a lot of Guy Aldred material, the Word that was in your collection, but there's a lot of the Word and other collections, pamphlets, publications. So we're going to bring all that together into one kind of Guy Aldred collection. So it would make sense then if there's the stuff that's held at special collections was put together with that. But I think that's, at least we can let people know that within the description, the finding aid, that there's also Guy Aldred material available within special collections at Glasgow City.
Of course, this stuff won't be digitised, so if we made an offer to digitise it, even though it wasn't actually in our collection, just like we've done with the James Kelvin collection, we could, that would be a positive outcome, but it might be a lot of negotiation required.
I think there might even be issues with that, because a lot of the Ethel MacDonald stuff takes back to the 30s, and there'll even be conservation issues in relation to digitising that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've digitised really old material before, and so you have to be careful how you do it. It's not easy, because they have a lot of old staples and things, and it's quite I'm in it, so
but that's stuff we've already got access to.
Do you know whether if Ethel MacDonald had any relation still around in Belfield?
The person who wrote the book on him, on Ethel MacDonald, Chris Dolan or something, he would have done the research. There's a while it was actually, you could get it in bargain books or something. A couple of years ago you could pick up the Ethel MacDonald book. He would have probably made all the contacts. Unfortunately, obviously, with John Taylor Caldwell passing away, a lot of these connections with various people are not there any longer. So we don't actually ourselves have any contact, because there's no continued. She was very much a lone fish in her family. She wasn't, there was nobody else who was swimming along with her at all. I suppose she could have died prematurely as well, just in the 50s. So no, we don't have any direct connection. But the author would be, if you can look up that book, I need to look at my own copy. It's mine itself in the title, but it's worth checking out. He would have contacts.
Do you know him?
No. There was also a person, it might be the same person but under a slightly different name. He wrote a song called From Bells Hill to Barcelona, which appeared on the album Blantyre to Barcelona, which was put together by trade unions in North Lanarkshire to celebrate the people going to Spain as part of the
Maybe also Mike Gonzalez at Glasgow Uni?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, Mike Gonzalez was involved in the film that was made, an anarchist story.
Oh right, maybe it was.
So he might have some contacts. He's still alive.
But the author guy would definitely be the person who would have tried to track down the family members and things. We had connections way back in the past with people in Blantyre who were involved in a group which dated way back to the beginning of the 20th century, and had visiting speakers like Emma Goldman would visit the mines and things. Yeah.
Really?
These people,
Blantyre? Blantyre, that's it.
Well, it was actually Burnbank, more specifically within Blantyre, and they had like running fights during the mid to late 30s when the Spanish Civil War was going on with people who supported the CP line in Spain and stuff. So it was which all this group did as well, but it's just a sight of the big battles going on in the miners' welfare or something over going on in Spain.
So it's like the only moment I've ever felt proud to come to Blantyre. Emma Goldman.
Well, she was one of many, I think, that visited. Maybe Kropotkin even did it before the First World War.
Voltairine de Cleyre in Govan Hill.
Yeah.
Voltairine de Cleyre.
It's just that we would have visiting speakers in the 70s like Albert Meltzer and whatever. It wouldn't be uncommon that because there'd be no video conferencing then.
Yeah, you actually had to go to Blantyre.
Yeah, you have to go out your way to go to all these places.
But even how did people from Blantyre contact Emma Goldman from?
It was just letter writing, basically. People, the secretary of every group, all the groups would have newsletters. I don't recall, just because there was no internet, stifling any turnout in meetings. Far from it. I remember huge attendances at anarchist groups and things. So it was just a combination of newsletters, letter writing, and phoning.
I used to, in the 80s, I used to write to London, post it at 5 to 6 in Portstewart in Northern Ireland, and it would arrive in Hackney the following morning.
But if they were doing over here to do a tour or something, the word would go out in all the local places.
Of course, there's a Bush Telegram.
Yeah, actually, thinking what you were saying about how hard it was to communicate, and true, but Keith does raise a point, because it's so easy to communicate now electronically. It's harder to get people off their butt to come. So I don't know. It's you can argue both ways.
There's much more distraction. Capitalism's been very savvy and has put tons and tons and tons of distraction there to really muddy the waters.
Could I say, Paula, see the wee talk that I gave there about the Claimants Union? That, to some extent, is history, right? It's not doing the stuff it used to do now. So to that extent, it's history. But the struggle continues, as they say, right? And anybody that isn't involved in something should be. And even to this day, I'm outside job centres on occasion, leaflets, try to engage people and so on, and that's only in relation to welfare benefits. But we should all be involved in something, and we should encourage other people to become involved as well. Because apart from anything else, what I didn't mention, which should always be at the forefront of our mind, it's fun as well, right? And it's a social thing, and that's two good reasons to be involved in it. Especially if you're one of these people that feel you don't have any social circle or whatever, So you really should, anybody that isn't already involved should be involved. And if they don't know how to, ask me.
Right, well, thanks very much.
Great, thank you.
Everybody for coming along. I think
thanks
that's
very
just
much,
about
everybody.
us, really. Is it two?
Have we got a date for the one in May?
We don't have a date,
No.
we do plan to, I think the next one was going to be the Alan Burnett collection. It's not together.
Yeah, I think it was going to be on the question of occupations and squatting.
Yeah.
I remember.
But we'll certainly let people know, and how did you find out about this event? Mitchell Library, yeah. So we'll certainly let people know. because I think it's a good way to come together and just talk about, spend some time thinking about the collection, and I mean, you could even just, if you wanted a run through of, if you had a specific interest in certain areas like political pamphlets or magazines from the 70s, it's all there. So if you needed a hand to, look for something.